Good evening and welcome to Prime Business. I am Pius Kojobaka. The International Monetary Fund has charged Ghana to strengthen its public financial management systems to help prevent the country from going into any form of debt crisis again. JoyNews has the rest of the story.
Ghana signed up to the IMF program. The country's debt-to-GDP ratio was more than 70%. The concern was that how can this come down if this program doesn't roll out some tough measures to address that?
The fiscal monitor highlights three main sort of actions to more broadly to improve efficiency. One, as I mentioned there, is strengthening institutions, strengthening the rule of law, addressing weak governance and corruption when this is the case, strengthen public financial management process. So these are very important lessons. Another one lesson which is, applies to many emerging markets is create space for additional spending. And this could be particularly relevant in countries that face this declining flows. Our countries can create spending. Typically, advanced economies have more room to reduce spending on pensions through pension reforms, while many emerging markets, low-income countries, have the scope to improve and reform energy subsidy, something that actually we touched base in the last year report. And finally, improving service delivery and digitalization is a case where it can help, and actually many countries, including in the African region, have adopted the digitalization to strengthen, for example, revenue mobilization.
Well, recent data released by the Bank of Ghana shows that we're doing around 44% in terms of Ghana's debt-GDP ratio. The concern is that how can we sustain these levels and we don't flip into that crisis when it comes to debt overruns? Well, that's the question I posed to a director at the IMF during the release of the fiscal monetary report on the sidelines of the annual IMF and World Bank meetings in Washington, D.C. This is what he had to say.
With respect to Ghana, I think there are two important lessons that we learned. The first is strengthen revenue mobilization through improving tax administration to create resources for additional spending, including on priority spending, including health. And second, strengthen public financial management to avoid payment of arrears, to increase debt transparency, and to keep the fiscal house in order, as we usually say.
From the Headquarters 1 building in Washington, D.C., this is JoyNews reporting for Joy Business.
Back home in Ghana, the Bank of Ghana is stepping up its monetary policy efforts to maintain inflation within single-digit levels. Now, in its latest move, the central bank has withdrawn nearly 4 billion cedis from the financial system through its open market operations bills aimed at tightening liquidity and stabilizing prices. We have more details in this report for you.
This is one of the highest amounts that the Bank of Ghana has raised from the market in recent times as it takes steps to ensure that the amount of money in circulation is in line or balanced with economic activities. These measures are coming at a time that government was initially struggling to raise the targeted amount through the treasury bills market. While this measure or instrument has been used by government to raise funds, it also indirectly helped in checking inflation. So, since government had been struggling, the open market operations bills had come to the rescue of the central bank in checking liquidity on the market. But some were worried about the amount being raised, especially when the inflation rate had been dropping to these record levels. At an interest of 21%, a lot more investors on the market were turning to these papers compared to the government of Ghana treasury bills. But will the Bank of Ghana be going ahead to raise these amounts? And what will be the implication to government when it comes to securing the targeted amount for its treasury bills auction? Also, could it be an indication that we are not yet out of the woods when it comes to inflation rate staying within the single-digit range going forward?
Talking about the Bank of Ghana, well, they say they will soon operationalize their digital credit directive and roll out a virtual asset licensing regime to strengthen oversight in the fast-growing digital financial space. Second Deputy Governor Matilda Santiesiedu disclosed this at the Momo FinTech Stakeholder Forum here in Accra. More in this report.
The rise of digital finance continues to transform Ghana's financial landscape from mobile money to online lending and virtual assets. But with this growth comes the need for stronger regulation and consumer protection. At the Momo FinTech Stakeholder Forum in Accra, the Bank of Ghana revealed that it is putting in place new measures to ensure a safe and transparent digital ecosystem.
As the central bank, we are building regulatory capacity and agility to supervise effectively. We are strengthening innovation and digital capabilities to bring our regulatory systems in sync with the market. Our monetary policy stance continues to promote stability, recognizing that innovation and macroeconomic disciplines are not competing goals, but complementary. In the near term, what we intend to do is to operationalize the Digital Credit Directive and roll out our virtual assets licensing regime and expand financial literacy as well as the redress mechanisms across the country.
Chief Executive Officer for Mobile Money Limited, Shaibu Haruna, stressed the importance of the digital ecosystem for business growth.
As Ghana's fintech economy evolves, it has become very necessary and very important for us to ensure that policymakers, regulators, and industry leaders connect with innovation. This together is to share ideas on how we shape the future of our industry to build an inclusive and sustainable digital financial landscape in Ghana.
Industry players say collaboration between regulators and fintech firms will be key to unlocking the full potential of digital finance in Ghana.
Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Anthony Kwesi-Sapong, has called on members of the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana to embrace innovation in their line of duty. According to him, this has become necessary to improve the quality of service delivery at various institutions. He gave the remark in an address at the 2025 luncheon by the ICAG here in Accra.
2025 ICAG presidential luncheon marks an important milestone for the Institute as one of the platforms where members network and share progressive ideas. Speaking as the guest of honor, Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Anthony Kwesi-Sapong, stressed on integrity of accountant and the need to support initiatives aimed at promoting growth in various organizations. He urged members to embrace innovation and ready to drive change in the country.
In today's world, we don't struggle to find a lot of things that are changing. The digital world, innovation is no longer an option. It is the engine of relevance. If you are going to remain relevant, then innovation is the way to go. We cannot be left behind. And the third component, which is compliance, ensure that as individuals and institutions operate, we operate within defined rules, standards, and ethical boundaries. And the connection between compliance and integrity is that every action that we take, like Newton's third law of motion, to every action there's equal and opposite reaction. I think you remember our GHs or secondary school physics.
Given his keynote address, Vice Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies Accra, Professor John Kweku-Mensah Mauto, urged regulators in the financial sector to act swiftly to protect the integrity of the sector.
Tone at the top is not just the burden of one profession or sector. Rather, it is a shared responsibility of the entire governance ecosystem. That is regulators, civil society, boards, investors, the media, the citizenry, and individual accountants. Ethical governance thrives when all actors align around integrity, innovation, and compliance. Regulators must enforce rules fairly, boards must be independent and act independently. The media must report the truth, and citizens must hold leaders accountable.
The ICAG believes that such gatherings help to empower newly graduated members of the Institute.
Let's now go to the agriculture sector. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has revealed that farmers in Ghana's major rice-producing zones, particularly in the volatile Oti regions, which contribute about 40% of the country's total output, barely use fertilizers due to their high cost. Now, presenting findings on Ghana's rice sector here in Accra, IFS Research Assistant Frederick Amo highlighted persistent challenges faced by farmers each season, which hinder efforts to boost yields and meet growing market demand.
Data from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture showed that Ghana's yearly per capita rice consumption has nearly doubled, rising from 32 kilograms in 2010 to 61 kilograms in 2022. However, the country continues to rely heavily on imported rice to meet local demand. Presenting findings from the Institute of Fiscal Studies report titled "Increasing Importation of Rice in Ghana, Can the Country Transform Its Fortune?" Research Assistant Frederick Amo outlined some challenges confronting rice farmers across the country.
Farmers complain bitterly, especially farmers in Ketu North. They complain bitterly about selling their local rice to consumers, retailers, wholesalers, and then sometimes the deal is for the wholesalers or for these retailers to go and sell and bring them the rice and bring them the money. Of course, if I haven't sold your rice, I wouldn't be able to pay you. So the delayed payments, it affects their production also. Consumers, retailers come to their farms and strike a deal with them also. And then they would have to settle for less. Sometimes they barely break even.
Senior Research Fellow at IFS, Dr. Said Boache, also called for the establishment of a Rice Development Board to spearhead reforms and help transform the sector.
Rice Development Board should handle all government interventions in rice sector covering production, harvesting, milling, and storage of rice. Therefore, it should be equipped financially and technically in such a way that it can handle government interventions pertaining to the provision of certified and quality rice seeds to rice farmers, provision of adequate fertilizer to rice farmers, provision of adequate irrigation facilities for rice farming, mechanization of rice farming operation, provision of adequate access to land for rice farming, etc. Rice Development Board should draw lessons from intervention experiences of governments of Vietnam and Thailand and other major rice-producing countries in the developing world. On the issue of fertilizer, for instance, the government, through Rice Development Board, should directly set up factories that produce adequate chemical fertilizer locally to serve rice farmers' needs at affordable pricing.
The IFS report further recommended measures on land acquisition and redistribution, youth participation in farming, and enhanced private sector involvement across the rice value chain.
Deputy Minister of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Samson Yahi, has revealed government plans to waive taxes on agro-processing machinery. This is among several short-term policies to boost the agribusiness sector. Speaking at the Regional Agribusiness Dialogue towards a national agribusiness policy in Sunyani, the minister explained that the tax waiver will help reduce production costs and encourage investment in the sector. Precious Semevo has more.
The Regional Agribusiness Dialogue in Sunyani, organized by the Ministry of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry in collaboration with Agri Impact Limited and other partners, gathered input from stakeholders from the Bono East and Half regions in the formulation of a national agribusiness policy. The dialogue on the theme, Resetting Agribusiness for Inclusive Sustainable Industrial Growth, aims to harmonize initiatives to drive growth in the sector. Juliana Santidate is the Deputy CEO of Agri Impact Limited.
We believe firmly that agribusiness has a central role to play in the transformation of our nation. A policy document will set the right tone to guide industry. And we want the process to be consultative and engaging, because we believe that every region has its own unique advantages and potential, and we wouldn't want to disregard their inputs in formulating a document that will serve as a guide for all industry.
Brongahafo president of the AGI, Samuel Intim, challenged policymakers to be deliberate about supporting youth entrepreneurs.
Agribusiness is not only for pensioners, but it should be primarily intentional to adopt and groom the next generation of agripreneurs. Can we find in the policy construct a coherent framework that will intentionally identify the next generation of agripreneurs so that we can contribute our cause?
Deputy Minister of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Samson Ahi, said efforts to implement a two-pronged strategy towards agro-industrialization, machinery efficiency and boost agribusiness sector are underway. He said a short-term plan to waive taxes on agro-processing machinery will benefit the sector.
If the person imported machinery for processing a particular crop, in pricing the end product, the person will factor the cost of the machinery that he imported. And so we believe that if we exempt importation of those machineries that will be used in processing our crops, it will help, one, to reduce the cost of overhead. It's also enable people to have confidence and to move into the agribusiness sector. The policy should come into force by the end of this year. Once Cabinet approves it, then it is ready for implementation.
Precious Semevo, Joy Business, Sunyai.
Still on Agric, the Tree Crop Development Authority says it is working with the national security and other key agencies to clamp down on the illicit importation of palm oil and vegetable oils into the country. Chief Executive Officer of the authority, Dr. Andy Selkra, says illegal imports are undermining Ghana's oil palm industry by reducing local refinery capacity and distorting the market. He's been speaking to my colleague, James Ishen.
If you want to play any role, you need to be an actor registered and licensed to do that. So we are drumming home this message for them to know and then come to our aid, or we'll reach out to them to be able to regularize the system and the industry that they are operating in.
You spoke about the oil palm. I personally come from a farming community, which of course we seem to have some of these problems. How is the authority making sure that since there is an influx of these oil palm into the country, how do you cut that? Are we producing enough to meet the demands out there, or what exactly is the case?
Yes, as you said, Ghana produces almost 400,000 metric tons, or consume 400,000 metric tons of vegetable oils, and out of this, almost 350 is produced here. The deficit of about 150,000 is coming from outside. The industry has the capacity to produce that, but because of the illicit influx of this oil. So TCDA, together with the Oil Palm Development Association of that, and other relevant stakeholders, i.e. the police, immigration, national security, are coming together, and with our sister body, Guta and the rest, we are teaming up to understand that this is about the country, and we need to protect investment, and we need to create jobs. So we need to address this illegal situation. So very soon you'll see, as we are embarking on a lot of education, that first of all, if you are into any oil importation, into any vegetable oil business, a palm oil business, you need to identify yourself with TCDA. We have to register you and give you a license. If you are going to import any oil, you need our permit to be able to do that. So that's the first thing to start with. So if you are not a registered member or a registered actor, you don't have the license to do that, and it's illegal, and the law has to take its course.
And you can always get stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business. I am Pius Kojobaka. I truly appreciate your time. Sport is next.